Hi everyone, I hope everyone is doing well and the course is approaching the end for the first academic year. So stay in contact if you have any queries. We're going to be on emails and we're going to be doing some check-ins for tutorials just to make sure that everything's okay. Keep getting your work onto ePortfolio, read through the feedback that you've been provided with and follow that if there's any additional work you need to do. Hopefully you've had some observations covered this year. But what I want to do is to cover Unit 02 with you. Now, we've been teaching this unit, but I just want to go through the assessment plan so that you know exactly what has to be done for this. There are a couple of criteria towards the end that we haven't covered yet, so I'm going to talk you through that in a little bit more detail. But for now, I'm just going to look at outcome 1 very quickly, and you'll see for outcomes 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, and 1.4, and 1.5, and 1.6, they are all working from the templates that you've been given. So you can find these on Canvas. They're under your course guides and they've also been emailed to you as well. So these should have been completed and these are to all be uploaded before the end of the academic year. This is very much about the different factors that implement and that impact on children's development, but from preconception, so think about the baby stage right through to 12 years old. Within your guidance, you'll see that you've already been given different theorists, different pieces of research to look through. So do your reading, put it into your own words. Please don't copy anything over. Think really critically about how the different pieces that you're reviewing impact on your practice. Okay, so work through, they should all be done by now, so I'm not going to spend too much time on those. Now for 2.1 and 2.2, we did also cover this, but just to go over it quickly again. 2.1 was an essay about critically reviewing the benefits of early intervention in responding to developmental delays. So this is very much about what is the purpose of those early intervention programs. You might want to talk about Sure Start here. You might want to talk about some of the programs you run in your own settings. You might want to talk about some of the Department of Education's programs that they do with preschool. The Getting Ready to Learn one could be very good. And even those interventions with multi-agency teams working together. How does it benefit those children if they're supported in the early years, but rather than being sorted in their later, being provided with support in their later life? And we do know, when you're thinking about a critical review, what you might want to do there is talk about the new SEN framework that was introduced in 2022. And this framework, 2021, that might be useful for thinking about how teachers are able to respond to SEN needs, how professionals are able to respond to SEN needs. Can you see any areas that maybe we need to review, that we need to think about? So make sure you get that critical review. Where is it beneficial and where do we still need to do some work? 2.2, you then write another essay. This can follow on. You can do it as a separate essay. That's completely up to you. Analyze how multi-agency working supports assessment and planning for children's development. Make sure you cover the 3 bullet points there: universal, targeted, and specialized. Now, I know that you have been working on this, so go back to your notes from the previous class and think about how you will cover that. Really important, review the feedback, think about where we've done, and this should actually be done by now, so you should be okay for that. 3.1, you'll find there's a template, which again, we've covered. It looks at different observation methods. Go through each of the ones listed on the worksheet, give me a detailed account. You'll see some of those observation methods you use already. Some of them, they might be new to you and you need to do a little bit of further reading, but work your way through, and if you've got any queries, you can let me know. 3.2 and 3.3, these can definitely be done together as one reflective account. Make sure to get a name, a signature added to the bottom of your reflective account. I don't mind how it's presented. It could be as a Word document, it could be in journal format, I don't mind, but have a witness to just put their electronic signature onto the page for me. What you need to do here is develop strategies to encourage children's and carers' participation in developmental assessment. So this is very much about how children and parents and carers are involved in that process of planning, assessment, implementation, evaluation. How do you, and please do draw on your own specific strategies that you use. What do your setting do to get the parents and children involved? Do you give children cameras? Do you get feedback from parents? Do you work key worker with parents with that support? Think about the different strategies and tell me about those in some detail. In your reflective accounts, you might want to draw on a bit of evidence. Why do you use that strategy? Where has that stemmed from? Has it been guidance from your early years specialist? Has it been guidance from something you guys have read? What does it tell you in your policies about encouraging parents and carers in this process? You'll then move on and evaluate how effective are those strategies that you're using. Think about where you're doing well, where you need to build on it. And I would put yourself together a bit of action plan to think about how do we hear that child's voice and the parent's voice, carer's voice more in what you're doing. So you can include your evaluation. We don't need to see you put into place that action plan, but we do need to see that you're able to review your strategies and think about how you're going to improve them. So please do work your way through and think about, right, this is what I'm going to do, and put them into place in your setting, because it's always good to strengthen that observation and planning cycle. We'll move on to outcome 4 here, being able to develop and implement programs with children requiring developmental support. So I'm sure all of us at some stage are working with children where we need to, just offer that little bit of extra support to help them in a range of developmental areas. You might be able to think of someone who you'll be able to focus this outcome evidence on. You'll see the first 2 criteria are direct observation. These might have already been covered. And 4.3, your assessor, Shirley-Ann, will work with you to have a professional discussion. She may again have done that while she was out visiting you, or you may have found that she'll be setting up a separate meeting with you to cover that point. Or she's done it already, which knowing Shirley-Ann, she probably has. The rest of it is also professional discussion bar 4.4, which is a reflective account. What we want to do here is implement strategies for improvement for programs of developmental support. So this is very similar to the last one, where you considered how you were going to improve the services of the way that we get the child and the parents and carers voice through. This one, you're looking at how do you develop your strategies that you're using for supporting those children with developmental delays, the support that you put in place. You might want to concentrate this on one child. How can you support that individual child in their development further? What strategies will you implement? And again, draw on research or guidance. Think about maybe, is there specific strategies that you've read about that would be able to support you? Is there information or guidance from the social services team or from the education team that you think that would be a good program to implement for that child? You might want to do it in a wider context and just think about how you maybe train staff, how you bring people in, how you put together programs. I don't mind how it's approached, if it's approached with an individual, with a group, but just you think what's best for your setting and where you would like to improve. Now, the rest of that, as I said, is professional discussion, so that will be you sorted. So we then move on to transitions in outcome 5, and you'll find that there's another template that guides you through a range of different transitions, and I want you to work through those and think about how can different transitions impact on a child's development. You might find that some transitions are going to have a very positive impact, whereas other ones, they might have a negative short-term, long-term. So be careful not to generalize too much, but you can talk about how it may impact. Okay, so you can work your way through that template there. 5.2, 5.3 and 5.5 are reflective accounts. We'll start with 5.2, evaluate the importance and effectiveness of positive relationships during periods of transitions. So this is all very much, you can draw on your own experiences here. You can talk about why positive relationships have helped you within your setting, when you've maybe helped children with settling in, when you've helped children moving on to new schools, when you've moved them from milk to solid foods, all of those different transitions that they move through every day. Why is it important for that child to have a positive relationship through that? Now, don't just go on your own voice here. Again, back it up with a bit of theory. What does theory say? Why does it say we need positive relationships? You can maybe draw on Bowlby and his talk about attachment theory. You know, there's loads of stuff out there that you can talk about in terms of positive relationships. So have a little look at that and then move on to 5.3. Analyze the use of evidence-based practice to support children experience transitions. So what evidence-based practice is, really what it says on the tin. It's all about making sure that there's something to back up why we approach things in a certain way. So how does evidence tell us to support children experience transitions? Because it's an analysis, you might want to talk about how some of this is just learned skills, something that you've learned from those that you've observed working with, your colleagues, through collaboration. But think about, maybe you need to do a bit more research, a bit more understanding of why do we take certain approaches. Are there particular areas where it gives you guidance, where you think if a child was going through a particular transition, this is the evidence-based practice model that we would use towards supporting them. So have a little readout on transitions, think about the evidence out there, and think about how that particular way, evidence-based practice will support children working through those, moving through those. And 5.5, evaluate the implementation of evidence-based practice, support children experiencing transitions. So how do you use it? Make sure to use your own examples, and you can see how this naturally will lead on from 5.3. You might also want to have a discussion together. You might want to think about how other colleagues that you have collaborated with, how they have used evidence-based practice to support transitions, the schools that you're working with, the different support groups that you're working with that support transitions. To write an evaluation, and if you want to maybe think about how you could strengthen the way that you support children for experiencing transitions, then you can do that there. Okay. We'll move on to outcome 6. And again, if you've got any queries on these, then we can follow it up with either a tutorial or a discussion as a group, whatever works for you guys. But get a start on what you can do, and then we can come back to any areas where you need a bit more guidance. 6.1 and 6.2, you'll find that there's worksheets for you to work through. So go through those and they guide you through what you have to do. And this is all about behavioural support. So you'll find those there that you can discuss, and this is all about the factors that contribute to children's behaviour. We all know there's no such thing as a bad child. We know that there's different things that happen to that child, different factors that impact on that child for them to behave in the way they do. So consider the social and personal factors and review the evidence-based practice to inform the development and implementation of different strategies. And we're going to look at contemporary ones and emerging ones, and the worksheet guides you through that. Once you get to 6.3, you're going to be drawing on your own practice. Critically evaluate with practitioners and others current practice and strategies used within your own setting, to include promotion strategies, prevention, external control strategies. So this is all about how you and your setting support behaviour within your own place. Okay, so what you might want to do is set up a discussion within your setting. This might happen naturally. It might be something where you bring staff together and say, look, I want to have a chat about this. And you're going to think about how you put into place the different strategies to support the children with positive behaviour. Promotion is all about making sure that we think about how do we promote those children in keeping up those behaviours that we hope that they will achieve, and making sure as well that they're in line with their level of development. There's nothing worse than the expectation that children will behave in a conformed way. You know, they're children, we want them to be playing, we want them to be making their own decisions, we want them to be speaking up if they've got something to say. Think about all those things. How, with your prevention strategies, you need to think about how do we put things in place from the beginning before something escalates. You know, you might find that you sit side by side with children. You might find that there's things they can choose, that they know the routine, that they know how things are going to work. So talk about those things. And again, if you want to draw on specific examples of in your setting, if there's one particular child that you've been working with, you can talk about that. Please maintain confidentiality. We don't want to be able to identify any children within any of your evidence, but think that through. So have a discussion with your staff. You can then record what the group said. How do you work towards these 3 things? So write your reflective account up on that. Once you've done that, you're going to establish an action plan for improvement with clear measures of successes. So thinking about how are you working towards that? And again, you can do this within that meeting that you're having with staff. What's your action plan for moving forward? How will you measure that? Will you maybe have people observing each other's not classrooms, but nursery spaces, nursery areas, moving from room to room? Will you be thinking about how a children settle, thinking about how they behave within your session? Again, I'm not wanting to hear that all children are listening intently, that they're doing everything that an adult tells them to do. What I want to hear is that they feel safe and secure, and that you guys also feel safe and secure in how you're caring for that child. So once you've put together that action plan, you can then evaluate once you've implemented it. So this one you do have to put in place. You can maybe come back together as a group, or you can do this as a leader, do an evaluation of how effective was that action plan that you put together. So once you've done that, that is that unit covered. And I believe that this is one of your last units to cover this term. So get all of your evidence onto ePortfolio, work through that, send me an email if you need any support at all in any of those pieces of work. Check over the next couple of days that you have all the templates, all of the worksheets. And if you don't, send me a quick email and I will get those out to you, because this is quite new. We might not have all of the templates up on Canvas. So just give me a shout if I've missed something. And best of luck, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.